everyone, Tim Schofield here, and I've been using the latest flagship from OnePlus, the 7 Pro, for about a month now, and I have a lot to talk about because, of course, OnePlus is aiming to be the best phone for that price point that they're hitting at $680 for the base model. Extremely competitively priced with a lot of flagship components to it. However, of course, they did have to make some sacrifices. So let's go ahead and take a look at the 7 Pro and talk about everything that's good and bad after using it for about 1 month. Let's get started. To begin, let's start with design of the OnePlus 7 Pro. And when I took it out of the box, I noticed that there was a bit more weight than I was used to it, which gives it a more sturdy feel, but it has held up very well over time. You also have one of the cooler colors, in my opinion. This is the blue OnePlus 7 Pro. And I really like the dark blue look and just kind of how it shifts depending on how the light hits it. Looking around, you will see there is no headphone jack in this device, which is a bit of a bummer in my opinion. However, you will also see that there are extremely minimal bezels. This is one of the better looking phones out right now. That is because they hid that front-facing camera up in the top of the phone for a pop-out camera. When that front-facing camera gets activated, you will see it will just pop out and it will close when not in use. It also has fall detection, so if it is popped out, you accidentally drop your phone, it will actually automatically close it. Now, I want to make note, I actually had this in my pocket and I did not clean it, so take a closer look at kind of how dirty and almost linty the front-facing camera gets. So I noticed just about every time if I've had it in my pocket for a while, I actually need to clean off that front-facing camera before I use it. And with these very minimal bezels, they managed to actually include an earpiece right towards the top, which also houses one of the stereo speakers. And speaking of those stereo speakers, they are excellent. Great job, OnePlus. They sound very good. They get very loud. Big fan of these stereo speakers. A couple places that they made sacrifices. First of all, there is no wireless charging in this phone, and also they did not get an IP certification, meaning there's no actual waterproof or water resistance included in this phone. However, some tests have concluded that it does have some sort of waterproof capabilities, but if I were you, just don't drop this in water if you can prevent it. The 7 Pro has an in-display fingerprint scanner, which you will see you have to place in the same spot every time. I am used to it. Muscle memory has kicked in. It's absolutely easy to do without looking at the phone. And also keep in mind, this is one of the most accurate and fastest in-display fingerprint scanners I have used. One kind of downside is that they don't have a true always-on display, so you'll see with the display off, the always-on display doesn't come on. It will activate if you raise the phone or if you actually tap the screen, so a little bit of a bummer. It doesn't always have it because, of course, you have to tap the screen before that fingerprint scanner will actually work. So you'll see I can't just set my thumb down and unlock it with the display off, which really doesn't come into big of a deal unless it is sitting on a desk, because generally when I pull it out of my pocket, it's already ready to go to unlock. So let's talk about the display on the 7 Pro, and I'm gonna come right out and say it. This is my favorite display on any phone out right now, specifically because it is AMOLED and the refresh rate it uses. This is a 6.7-inch 1440p fluid AMOLED display. Now it's called a fluid AMOLED display because we're gonna jump into settings and you will see the screen refresh rate is actually at 90 Hertz. You can bump it down to 60 Hertz, which will of course decrease how smooth it is, but it will help you save your battery. Now, since it is actually a big deal, I'd like to show off a comparison between 90 Hertz and 60 Hertz in slow motion so you can see the difference. It genuinely looks better on 90 Hertz, a lot smoother, and when I go back to a 60 Hertz display phone, it just does not seem as smooth and snappy. And also when watching videos, playing high-end games, everything looks really good, viewing angles are good. One thing I noticed is I wish it got a little brighter, the auto brightness tuning. I find that I have to manually bump it up occasionally, so that's one thing that I believe they can change with software, so hopefully they do that very soon. But overall, I've been very happy with this display. It does have curved sides, which gives it a little bit of a thinner touch to the side, not as thick as the flat screen phones. The OnePlus 7 does have a 4,000 milliamp hour battery built into it, and when it comes to battery life, I've gotten very good battery life. Not quite the top tier battery, and I think that's attributed to the 90 Hertz display that it does have. However, you can bump it down to 60 Hertz and you do get elongated battery life. However, I pretty much always stick to 90 Hertz, but maybe if you're in a crunch and you need a little bit more battery, bump it down to that 60 hertz. Now, I've always been able to get through a full day on one charge. I get about 5 hours and 15 minutes screen on time average, so it gets me through a full day and sometimes into the next day as well. This phone also has a 30-watt warp charge, which charges the phone extremely fast. So if you are in kind of a bind, you can just charge it for about 15 minutes and you get a good amount of battery life out of it. And with the 7 Pro iteration, they decided to go with a triple camera system on the back. So they do have a standard wide-angle lens, an ultra-wide-angle lens, and a telephoto lens for some lossless zoom. Jumping into the viewfinder, you can quickly zoom in, you can quickly zoom out to that ultra-wide-angle lens. Now also, of course, they have portrait mode. They have a nightscape mode, which takes a long exposure, which isn't as good as Samsung's or Google's long exposure modes, or Huawei's for that matter. And then of course, you can actually shoot in 4K 60 frames per second. And of course, you also have a Pro mode to customize all those things to your liking. Now, when it comes to the shots taking, I'm very happy with the pictures taken in bright light scenarios on this phone. I wanna make note that the ultra wide angle lens quality is just a little bit lower than the other two lenses. I was actually a little disappointed in how some of the ultra wide angle shots turned out, but other than that, very good camera. The one area it lags behind other flagships is in the lower light category. Now, when you're in a bar or a dimly lit room, some of the shots just don't come out nearly as good as other flagships out on the market. I've also been having an issue with my OnePlus 7, which does not seem to be widespread. A few random reports of it. However, I have talked to OnePlus and they said a fix is coming. And that is actually when I'm in an app, I get some ghost touching. So randomly, it'll seem like someone is touching the display when I'm clearly not touching it. Now, like I said, OnePlus will be pushing out a fix for this. However, I wanted to just make you aware of it, just in case your unit had it. Now, out of the box, this runs Android 9 Pie, which is the latest and includes Oxygen OS. Now, OnePlus does a very good job at keeping their phones updated. So if you do purchase this phone, you can confidently say you're gonna get the next version of Android very quickly. And with that being said, they also have a lot of tweaks. So you'll see it does have a dedicated dark mode, which I've already enabled. It has a screen recorder built in, which I'm a big fan of. You also do have a set of gestures where you can swipe from the bottom corner to go back, swipe up and pause to go to your recent apps, swipe up to go home, and just press and hold that power button to activate the Google Assistant. So they work really well. I'm a fan of the gestures that they've included. Now, there's also other gestures that you can do, such as flip to mute, 3-finger screenshot. You could double tap to wake. Now, music control, or one that I really like, a V when the screen is locked will turn on my flashlight, or of course an O will open up the camera. And after using this phone for a month, this is the fastest phone I have ever used. It's crazy quick, and then of course coupled with that 90 hertz display just makes it feel even smoother than it already is. Now keep in mind, I've been using the 12 gigabytes of RAM model, so this model has the highest amount of RAM that you can get. However, you cannot go wrong with 6 or 8 gigs of RAM on Android right now. So regardless of if you're playing some of the higher end games out right now or doing a lot of heavy multitasking, this will handle everything you throw at it, no problem. To finish everything off, I'd like to give some final thoughts on the OnePlus 7 Pro. Now, at this price point, I can recommend buying this phone. Now, if it had a higher price point like other flagships, I'd probably say look elsewhere because of the sacrifices being made, but it doesn't. It has a significantly lower price point than those flagships. Now, with that being said, it has some of the bests out there right now. It has the best display, the best performance, and it has an awesome looking full screen display with that pop-out camera. Now, with that being said, like I mentioned, they do make sacrifices. You don't get wireless charging, you don't get an IP water resistant rating. And you also get a camera that is good, however, it isn't as good as other flagships out there. So those are the kind of sacrifices that you will need to make at the price you are paying. So that's everything I want to talk about with the OnePlus 7 Pro. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to click that thumbs up. Be sure to click that subscribe button as well. A lot more coverage coming soon. And as always, guys, thank you very much for watching.